Welcome back, everybody, to the Auburn Undercover podcast on the 24/7 Sports Network. Christian Clemente here, joined by Jason Caldwell. Jason, a very special episode, a live episode here at about 9:40 p.m. On Wednesday night. And the reason we are live this late on the YouTube channel and over on the Auburn Undercover Facebook as well is for those people that are watching and not listening, the picture on the screen, Auburn men's golf, national champions. Auburn goes into California as the #1 ranked team in the country. Little bit shaky throughout stroke play. Finished stroke play 6th. You had to be inside the top 8 to qualify for match play. They get to match play. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Jason. You've been covering it more than anyone and more than I have. Beat Virginia, beat Ohio State, and then beat Florida State tonight for the national championship.
Yeah, that's right. And this is, it's a team that, I've been watching a lot of these guys for several years. Obviously, Jackson Coyven, Josiah Gilbert, a freshman, but seeing these guys continue to work and get closer and closer. And disappointing last year for them to not make it, and it's been a push. And I remember talking to Nick Kleiner in the fall, and he goes, "Like, the goal is the national championship." And I talked to him last night at 11 o'clock or so, and he had just finished walking 12 miles, and he goes, "Look, that's it. We're where we want to be." And it showed up. And I had some people asking earlier in the day, why is Jackson Coyven 3 and not 5? I was like, man, J.M. Butler's been the anchor for them in match play. That's where he is. That's who he is. And if you're kind of a Ryder Cup fan, you'll watch and go, sometimes you want to put one of your other guys up a little higher to maybe put a point on the board. It worked out that way for Auburn. Jackson Coyven goes out and blitzes the back nine, puts that early point up for Auburn, and takes a little bit of that pressure off. Brendan Valdez played wonderful golf. And so you had those 2 points up. Really good Florida State team. I kind of previewed it going into the day and talking about, look, there's a lot of top 50 and 60, amateur players in the world that are in this match, and it showed up today. That's a very difficult golf course, and people that have watched it for the past few days and even back to the women last week, I mean, you saw some of the bounces and how firm and fast it is. And the J.M. Butler shot at 17 was that's as clutch as it gets. I mean, 178 yards. Now, these guys hit it so long, he hit a 7-iron. For me, I'm trying to hope I can hold a 5-iron on the green probably. But, man, everything they've done to this point, and they didn't back away from the pressure. They didn't back away from the expectations of going, hey, look, we think we're the best team in the country. Nick Kleiner keeps saying it. They win the SEC championship. Hey, we believe we're the best team in the country. They win their regional. We believe we're the best team in the country. They didn't play as well in stroke play, but they also battled, and that showed up in match play. And, man, just a incredible performance, a really good team. And to finish off with 10 wins, I think 7 in a row for them to finish the year. They hadn't lost a golf tournament since March. That's pretty fantastic. And so unbelievable performance for the first national championship in program history.
Yeah, I love the point that you made about securing a point kind of early there with Coyven, because, Baca goes down and he ends up battling back, almost forcing a playoff there on 18. But he was down consistently 2 to 3 throughout most of the match today. Josiah Gilbert had a rough stretch there, had a couple of tough holes. He's down by as many as 4 at some point. And then you're kind of sitting there looking like, okay, well, now all the pressure is on the final 3. And you feel like those are your 3 best golfers kind of anyway. But if you have Coyven, who is technically, rated the highest player on Auburn's team, if you have him in the 5-hole, and if you can't even, let's say J.M. Butler's in the 3 spot, and maybe he doesn't play quite as good or something like that, then Coyven doesn't even matter. It doesn't even get to that point. So I like what you're saying there, Jason.
Yeah, it's kind of like, and J.M. Butler is a guy they want in that spot. They knew they were going to get to there, I believe. But yeah, you're right. It's kind of like having a closer you can never get to. It doesn't help you if you can't get to him. And I think it was a very, very great strategic move by Nick Kleiner, Chris Williams, Buddy Alexander, who a veteran that has won national championships in Florida. Having him there has been a big deal for this team too, as that third assistant coach for both the men and women. And but I think, getting that point up early and having him do it the way he did in such dominant fashion, I think it helped everybody take a deep breath. And obviously, this is a team that has that has performed and done it at the highest level for a long time this year. And they did it in difficult situations. That, had you had an easy golf course and you're shooting 25 under and doing what they did, I kind of in Baton Rouge at that regional, it's one thing, but do it on a course that played like a U.S. Open. That was not an easy golf course, and so it required shot making. And I talked to Nick maybe the first night they were out there, and he said, "Look, this is going to take some real discipline from this team because you're just not firing at pins." He said it may be 30 feet left. It's almost the equivalent of like playing at Augusta, where you go, man, you miss your target by 5 feet, and you may be 100 feet away from the hole. And we saw some of those things here. We saw it late for Florida State today on 16. I mean, that ball 6 inches less roll, and that matches on. It rolls all the way down the hill in the water and match over. And so, man, a lot of storylines for this team though, and one of them is right there, Jackson Coyven. He just kind of runs rush shot again, wins his matches in match play, puts that first point up, and then J.M. Butler. Those two were the anchors for this team in match play, and that proved to be the difference.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, Coyven goes up one, I believe on like 5 or 6. I think it was on 5. It was on 5. He goes up 1 on 5, then loses 6, which ties up the match, loses 7, goes down 1. Even when he's down 1, I mean, down 1, it doesn't matter who it is. You never really feel super concerned about where a team stands. But especially Jackson Coyven, it kind of just felt like, okay, well, he's going to turn it on here eventually, and he's going to come back and win. And sure enough, he won, I think, 5 and 4. For the people that don't know what 5 and 4 means, Jason, just explain that real quick.
Yeah. In match play, it doesn't matter what you make on a hole. You either win or lose, or you tied. And so you can make a 12, a 14. It's just one hole. That's it. And so it's basically holes that you've won versus how many holes are left to play. And so he is up by 5 holes because he chipped in on his final hole. He chips in and wins the hole with a birdie. And so he is up by 5 holes, and there are only 4 left to play. That means the match is over with. That your competitor can't catch you. That's it. And so the match ends there. So he got a little redemption for having to play those extra holes yesterday by finishing a few early today. And so, it was fun to watch and to finish and see the emotion. And Christian, you tweeted something about it, and I think hopefully this gives people a little bit more of an idea of what college golf is, because it's very different than PGA Tour golf. This is Ryder Cup golf, basically, is what it is now. It's not so much in stroke play, but the team concept is still there. Nick Kleiner talked about it after the broadcast about the locker room. And Christian, you've been out there with me. They have a locker room. They have their own practice facility. They hang out together. Ping pong table, and they're out there playing ping pong all hours of the night. I mean, it is a camaraderie, and golf is such an individual sport. You play high school golf, but this is really the only time in their careers where it'll be this way, unless they make a Ryder Cup, and that's 1 week. This is a year of work to get to this point, and to finish it off the way they did was pretty spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, look, you mentioned yesterday getting a little bit of relief today, not having to play the full 18, and you mentioned it earlier with Nick Kleinert, who was walking with Jackson Coyven all day yesterday. I don't think people understand how much golf, playing 39 holes of golf in 1 day, is while walking and carrying your bag.
In a bag. And you have to stay mentally focused to make the shots and to do the things you did. And Nick told me after, he said, I walked 12 miles, and he walked with Jackson Coyven. He stays with Jackson pretty much throughout the time. J.M. Butler had Chris Williams with him late because there was only a match on the course, but J.M. Butler's usually when they let him kind of go by himself. Normally they stay with the younger guys to help them along. 12 miles for the coach, not the guy that's carrying a bag and having to hit shot after shot after shot.
Not to mention early in the morning, they're going to be hitting range balls. They're going to be warming up before they play.
Well, here's the other part of this. Now, he was in Dallas winning the Ben Hogan Award. His team was already there, so him and Nick Leonard fly to California. They played a couple of practice rounds. Heading into the practice round, That was last Thursday, I believe, the practice round. I think they started Friday, I believe.
That sounds right.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, match play Tuesday, Wednesday. Yes, sir. So they had a practice round at Lacoste on Thursday. Well, Tuesday and Wednesday they played golf elsewhere in California because the women were still playing on this course, finishing up their championships. Rancho Santa Fe was one of the places they played, which is where Phil Mickelson grew up. That's where he, they say Rancho Santa Fe, California, when they introduced him. So they played Rancho Santa Fe and another golf course. So they played golf the 2 days prior to the practice round. Then you play 72 holes. And then you play 36 holes of match play, 39 for Jackson Coyven, and then you play the championship. That's a ton of golf riding a golf cart. That is grueling to do it and carry your bag and do those things. And man, to finish it and to hit the shots they did down the stretch shows you physically, mentally, everything that they were locked in. And I think, just proved why they were the best team in the country.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's literally a physical aspect to this. Like, you have to be able to physically hold up. I mean, we even saw other teams, Georgia Tech. Now, some of that was due to injuries and subbing guys in and trying to keep guys fresh a little bit. But Georgia Tech and Florida State were changing guys. Auburn had the same golfers go all throughout the tournament, if I'm correct, all through stroke play, I think. So it was the same 5 guys the whole time.
Yes, the same 5 guys. Alex Mogelsong is the guy we need to mention. He's been there from the get-go, a leader for this team. That they went with him to the SEC championships. Went with him. They're like they wanted him to be a part of it, and he's a key part of things off the course for this group. And so those 2 seniors that come in, he's the guy that you see him. He's in the pictures. He's standing up there with them. He's part of this and a big part of it. And that. We've talked to Nick over the year and the last couple of years about the competition level of this team. There's a bunch of really good golfers that aren't out there that would be playing and have played well at times for Auburn in the past couple of years. Just maybe these guys became a little bit better here down the stretch. But the competition level and the depth of this team, it showed up because that's what it takes to win a title.
Yeah, I want to touch on a couple more things golf-wise real quick. We're also going to touch on recruiting for the weekend ahead because it's going to be a busy football recruiting weekend. You mentioned the course being so difficult. It just so happened yesterday, I got to watch the semifinals with David White, who is Walker White's father, who played college golf at Arkansas and has played golf at a very high level. He's a very skilled golfer still to this day. And even he said, just hearing the way the ball is bouncing off the greens simply from wedge shots, he's like, this course and these greens they're just brutal out there. And Auburn seemingly played the course really smart. They knew when to sit back a little bit. They knew when to push. The only time you really, at least today that I can think of where you probably misplayed it pretty poorly, Baca had a couple of holes, but then going down the stretch, J.M. Butler on the 11th where he laid up and then ends up going over the green with his wedge shot that ends up giving the lead that he had just gotten on 10 right back to Clanton, but then obviously Butler gets it right back. But look, this was an extremely, extremely challenging course, and it was windy today, at least earlier in the day it was as well.
Yeah, it played. I just went back and looked just in stroke play. So those 4 rounds, it played to an average of 75.25, which is 3 1/4 shots over par for the best players in the country. And that is what you would expect from a U.S. Open, and the difficulty in how things change too is Virginia wins the stroke play going away. I mean, they win it easily, and once again, the team that wins the stroke play does not win the national championship. They didn't even make it out of the quarterfinals before losing. So, so much goes into it, and the ability to just kind of reset button and start over. And you're playing the course, you're playing the opponent some, but you're playing the course more and going, hey, look, and trying to decide. And Nick told me, as recently as last night too, par's good on this golf course. Par is a good score. And you look today, and there are a bunch of holes that were won with pars, and that was it. Avoid the big mistakes, and you're going to have a chance to win. And Auburn did just that.
Yeah, and then, I mean, we've already talked about him, but J.M. Butler, look, it was touched on a lot on the broadcast, but it should not be overstated. he never trailed at any single point during match play. Not once. He was never down a hole to Virginia, Ohio State, or Florida State at any point. I mean, that's pretty insane to never go down at any point. And he had a couple testy putts today where he had to make it. He had like a 10 to 12 footer. I don't remember exactly what hole it was on. It was on the back nine to maintain his lead. I think it might have been on 13 right after he got his lead right back. But he had some testy putts, and that was the broadcast was talking about it. But JM did not give Clanton a putt on one that was kind of right in the gimme range right then and there. And from that point on, that match there were not a lot of gimmies. There were not really any gimmies in that match.
No, it's you have to go win it, and until the end, there were a couple of concessions, but when Florida State was out of the hole, things like that. But I'm sure it felt pretty good to not have to, you have a tap in there at the end to be able to pick that one up. Having to make a 5 or 6 footer with a national championship on the line. J.M. Butler's a cool cat, and I would trust him by doing that, but it sure is nicer to be able to flip that ball up and put it in your pocket and be done for the day. So it was just fun to watch them celebrate. And obviously it's a huge moment to win a national championship. This is a program that has been there and have put themselves on the map. 2018, they played in the match play. And that was an Oklahoma State team that was loaded. That ended up winning it on their home course. And this one is one that they weren't really sure what to expect from La Costa, from this golf course. It's been redesigned. It was really, really firm, and it took a lot of maneuvering, because that is not how this team's used to playing golf. Very few of these guys play in situations like that where you're playing that firm. Even in California, that's not the way golf is normally played, and they were able to execute and just to kind of find a way to get there. And once they did, they got their footing. And then you get these guys in match play, and they showed it. They're the best match play players in the country, and they come away with a victory.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, J.M. Butler he might have actually had Auburn's highest score in stroke play, or he was 4th or 5th, I believe. He did not necessarily have the greatest stroke play turn there, but he's a match play player. He was really good. I found it interesting. The broadcast mentioned he's majoring in psychology, which you need to have pretty good psychology, both your own and maybe get into the mind of your opponent there if that's what he was trying to go for on one, not giving him that putt. I don't know, but psychology is definitely a key factor. A couple people here that are live in the chat. Mike saying great idea to go live. Mike, we appreciate you being here. He said he can't get enough of the golf coverage. Look, Jason's been killing it. He's had the men's and the women's golf coverage. It does not end tonight with the national championship. We are going to have some video interviews, hopefully some of the golfers and Coach Nick Kleinert as well over the next couple of days. Obviously, when they get back from California.
Yeah, attempting to get them on with us tonight. I don't know that we're going to get through to those guys quite right now. They're probably pretty busy still.
Yeah, as you mentioned before we went live, 1,000 text messages on Nick Kleinert's phone might be lowballing it a little bit. I can only imagine how many texts and calls and everything that he has.
Did not mention it before. I did not dare mention before. I'm like, hey, if you guys win, come on with us afterwards, because I did not want to put that out there. So I just left it alone and said, hey, maybe we'll get lucky maybe when they get done. But Tumor's Corner getting rolled. It's a fun moment. You're right. I went back and looked, and let's see. J.M. Butler was Auburn's lowest. He was plus 16 in the 4 rounds of stroke play for this team. He finished 74th individually, but it's just a different game. Stroke play is much more penalizing than match play is, because like I said, you make a 5, a 6, a 7, it doesn't matter. You just lose one hole, and it also shows you maybe you're talking about that competitive fire. When it's head to head, it brings out a little bit different thing for J.M. Butler. And hey, we've seen it in Ryder Cups. There's been guys for years that did not have very good years, and weren't playing well, and you put it in Ryder Cup, and all of a sudden they go nuts, and you go, "What is it?" It's just a different mindset, and for whatever reason, it clicks with guys, and we've seen it. Sergio Garcia, all the Spaniards, Sevi, Jose Maria Olazabal, all those guys. You put them in match play, and it was a different world.
I mean, I was even going to say last year, I'm going to get some hate in the chat for this, but Justin Thomas had a terrible year on the tour, makes the Ryder Cup, and then he was one of their top players last year. It's just
and so
sometimes you get to match play and you're kind of that guy.
It is, and hey, another Louisville kid, J.M. Butler. So following the footsteps there. But yeah, just a whole lot of fun. Congrats to those guys, and turn back around and start grinding for summers and the amateurs and everything that is to come for them. But yeah, Mike's talking about the talent and culture.
It's going to keep getting better because some of the guys that you have coming in next year.
Yeah, I mean, they've got another freshman that hasn't been playing that's really talented, and then they got one coming in that's really talented. But you're right, it's about culture, because the competition is where it starts. Nothing's given. Josiah Gilbert's really talented. It took him the entire season to get into the true lineup for this team, because he just wasn't there yet. And so it's an earn it culture, but they have fun, but they work really hard, and that's the key. And I think it's there's a relaxment. There's a, hey, let's enjoy this, but when it comes time to get serious and grind, those guys are out there, they're working, and we've seen it in action. And we saw the results this week, but it's been result driven all season long.
Yeah, we're going to touch on one more golf thing from Big Richard. How'd you feel about the coverage? Not to dump on the Golf Channel, but it was
almost put in my story last night that I wrote this morning that coverage of the Golf Channel for Florida State would begin at 5:00. I kind of left that one out a little bit, but it kind of felt like that for a while. And hey, to their credit, Steve Burkowski, who's been covering college golf for years and years and years, said, "Look, hey, I didn't think this team was going to win it, even though they were the number one team in the country. They had beaten everybody. Nobody in that side thought Auburn was going to be the team to beat, and it showed by their coverage. And it happens in major golf tournaments when you look, and it's Gordon Sargent was the biggest name in the field. He's a guy that had been there around longer. He had not played the best golf this season, but he's the biggest name. So they kept throwing him out there. A little surprising that yesterday it didn't change some. But you know what? I think Auburn will take the title and less coverage and run with it. And who knows? Maybe they got a little bug in their ear going into the day going, hey, nobody thinks you're going to win this. I don't think it's meant to the level of, nobody thinks we're going to win, because I think this team did not care about that. But who knows? Maybe it was a little bit of a motivating factor.
Yeah. And today it was very odd that they were previewing the U.S. Women's Open for the first 35 minutes of the actual national championship, and they waited 35 minutes to actually air the coverage of the actual event going on. But not my event. So coverage was spotty. Auburn's golf was not spotty. They are the national champions. Like you said, Jason, congrats to them. That does not end our golf coverage at auburnundercover.com. We're going to have a ton more to come over the coming days, coming weeks as well. We have another special thing kind of in the works that hopefully we can pull off as well. That, look, you'll just want to stay tuned for that. It would be really special if we're able to pull it off. With that being said, we're going to transition a little bit to some football recruiting, because we've got a huge weekend ahead. Before we get into that, if you're listening later on the YouTube channel, or if you're tuned in live right now, we would appreciate if you could subscribe down below. That's totally free, and it does not cost you anything. We are like 30 subs away from 10,000, so that would be awesome to hit soon. Jason, there's a lot of big visitors. 7 official visitors confirmed to be coming in this weekend, plus an elite camp on Sunday. I'm looking through all the players and the pictures that I have lined up for the YouTube here. Really don't even know where to start, because there's some really good ones. But I think I'll go with Caleb Cunningham, because that's a guy that I got to talk with on the phone, I believe on Monday, going into his visit. 5-star wide receiver from Choctaw County there in Mississippi. Look, this recruitment is pretty wide open. I think it's going to be really hard to pull him out of the state of Mississippi, because I think Ole Miss and Mississippi State will throw the kitchen sink at him to try and make sure that he doesn't leave. Auburn is right there in it, though. I think of all the other teams that are in it, Auburn, Alabama, Florida, Tennessee, Auburn maybe has the best chance out of those other teams to get him out of Mississippi. And it's thanks to the two guys in the picture there, Marcus Davis, who's been recruiting him at Auburn for a long time, and then Derek Nix, who's been recruiting him even longer from his time at Ole Miss when he was the receivers coach.
Yeah, relationships. That's still a huge part of recruiting process, and I think that's a big part of things for Caleb Cunningham. You're right. If he winds up at Auburn, this picture will be a big part of the reason why, because it'll be those two guys, and we've seen Marcus Davis. Marcus Davis has already become an elite recruiter at the wide receiver position, and this is one that feels like, if the passing game takes the next step this year with these guys, and a decision may be made before that, but if you look out there and you go, hey, this team is throwing it, that's who we're going to be. We told you this was going to happen. To me, having guys doing it, even if they're young guys, doesn't hurt you, it helps you. Because who knows what it does with a guy like Juju Lewis or whatever. It can have a lot of impact, and I think it could have an impact on him for sure.
I also think Caleb Cunningham is a rather impressionable young kid. Look, he is awesome to talk with. He is always very excited, always very personable. And the interesting thing there is he said it a couple months ago when he last visited, and he confirmed to me again on Monday he's going to be back for Big Cat Weekend. If you want to talk about an impressionable event, it's Big Cat Weekend. That's kind of where you get that feel a little bit. So be interesting to keep tracking that one. Let's go to Broderick Scholl, the huge offensive tackle target. Interesting recruitment for a variety of reasons. He's rated as highly as a 5-star by On3. I believe he's a 4-star in the 24/7 Sports Composite rankings. He is a true Tier 1 offensive tackle target for Auburn. That is what matters the most. Auburn really, really wants him. Auburn has been in a very good spot with him, and Auburn is going to look to try and really keep moving up and maybe even try and seal the deal this weekend, Jason. And you got to talk with him after he visited the first time in the spring. He said, look, I'm an interesting kid, and Auburn has a good plan for me. And that's kind of the theme of this recruitment, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Very, very different guy. And I think you saw one of the photos there is Jake Thornton going to watch him in action in his theater, his production, and when you think about him, we talked about relationships. I think it's comfort. It reminds me a little bit of Braden Smith in the recruitment. Very nice kid, fun kid, really good football player, and a guy that when he gets on the field, you watch him play and you go, holy cow, that guy's is a terror. And off the field, much like Braden Smith, you go like, man, I don't know if I can get him to talk. He's really quiet. And
he's kind of like DeAndre Carter a little bit, too.
Not shy, but this kind of reserved. And that's the way Braden Smith was. And then you get him on the field, you go, man, that guy's going to rip somebody in half. Brody reminds me of the same thing. Just the kind of the way he approaches things. And I think that, smaller town feel of Auburn. Auburn is not a small town any longer, but it is a smaller town still. I think that can be a big part in this one. And, opportunities when you talk about outdoors and things that you can do around Auburn could have
even Coach Dom.
Absolutely. And so there's lots of things, but yes, the strength and conditioning program that he talked about, I said, look, that was one of the things that really stood out to him was that, and, hey, when you can go, hey, look, yeah, there's an NFL All-Pro guy that's coming back to work out with me because he believes in what I do that much, even though he didn't play at Auburn. That's a big deal, and I think it's a big deal for him. And I think, like I said, that's a part of this as well.
Let's go with Elijah Melendez here, the Miami commit, as people that are watching on YouTube can see, throwing up the U there. He's been committed since, I believe, December. It's been a while since Auburn has been involved with this recruitment, at least getting a lot of buzz, but Auburn has been there for a long time. He visited last spring. Josh Aldridge was one of his early offers. Aldridge has been there for a long time for him. But DJ Durkin was really leading the way in his recruitment over at Texas A&M, and was the reason Texas A&M was involved Jason, not that dissimilar from Jaden Perlotti, who we talked about last recruiting show. Look, DJ Durkin is what has Auburn in it with Elijah Melendez, and he's going to be up this weekend for an official visit. I don't think it will be his last visit either. And the interesting kind of note there, and if you're a subscriber at Auburn Undercover, you got this information days ago now. But I was chatting back and forth with Elijah Melendez a little bit, and then unprompted, kind of after the conversation had ended, he said, "Look, Auburn has a real shot, and it's because of Coach Durkin. He's real." And you don't typically get unprompted messages like that, especially from a kid committed somewhere else. So when you do get that, it's pretty noteworthy.
It is, and we saw the respect that a guy like Jaden Perlotti had for DJ Durkin, and I think the impact that he's having on especially the linebacker group of prospects in this class and beyond, it's already showing up. I think the style of play, but having him as a position coach, I think it's very intriguing for guys, and I think they like what they see and hear from him. And so, people are wondering what kind of impact is he going to have on the recruiting trail? How long will it take to show? It may not take very long to show up if this continues, because he's a guy that absolutely is impacting.
Well, you already snatched away Tyler Lockhart.
Correct. And Jaden Pelotti's a guy that you go, Auburn has kind of been in there from the get-go. But Christian, I think we both felt for a while like, and this is not going to happen. And now you look and you go, okay, this is it. I think same thing here when you're talking about the ability to get a visit and to impact things that quickly and to change things. Now, it may not change it completely, but getting the guy on campus, we talked to, Will Redmond the other day, and I think he's seeing it, what we've already seen and what Auburn people have seen a long time. Get guys on the Auburn campus, and you got a shot. That's what you look at this weekend to go, okay, what's this thing sound like when that visit's done Saturday, Sunday? That'll be fun to see and hear and kind of get a feel for.
Three more to talk about here. Amari Winston, the Texas tight end commit out of Calhoun, Georgia. Jason, we kind of randomly stumbled upon this name a couple weeks ago out on the road. We were at Milton High School, home of Auburn tight end commit Ryan G., along with big Auburn wide receiver target CJ Wiley as well. But we were talking with Ryan, and you did a video interview with him, which is up on the Auburn Undercover YouTube channel for those that haven't seen it. And even before the interview, talking with him, he said, "Look, I'm recruiting Amari Winston pretty hard, and I think that we're pretty close to getting an official visit from him the weekend of May 31st. Just have to lock it in a little bit." Sure enough, about a week and a half, 2 weeks later, that official visit is locked in. This is a guy who I think visited Auburn a while ago. Like when I say a while ago, I mean a year and a half, 2 years ago. Being from Georgia, he's been to Auburn once or twice, but it's been a long time. I know that for sure, unless he snuck in at some point. We don't know it, but kind of stumbled upon this name, comes true, and he's going to officially visit this weekend. One that we don't necessarily know a ton about, but we will after the weekend, and it's another big tight end target to know as Auburn continues to push for 2 or 3 tight ends in this class.
Yeah, no, it was a name where all of a sudden you're like, oh, your ears perk up a little bit when you hear that, and it comes to fruition that these guys you get on campus. This is a big body. You look at that picture and go, this is a big old dude. Can he make enough of a run? Auburn's tight end room has changed a little bit with a decommitment, but they absolutely want to add 3 legitimate tight ends because they want to play 2 or 3 at a time. And, obviously it won't be all the time, but I think it's, I wrote about it the other day. Tight end is a skill position on this offense. And they want guys that can go down and make plays. And you look at this, look at his size and his arms and the ability to go make plays. And would be a great addition. Again, get him on campus and give yourself a shot. So this would be another one you look at and go, hey, what does it sound like when he walks out of here?
Another one that we really don't know a whole lot about, just to be completely honest, is Blake Woodby, a cornerback from up in, I think he's up in Maryland. I should know this, but I don't off the top of my head. He's up from the Northeast, somewhere up there. He had been committed to Ohio State for a long time. Recently backs off that pledge. He had visited this spring actually, but declined to interview afterwards, so didn't really get a true feel for kind of where Auburn sits there. But now Auburn gets the former Ohio State cornerback commit back on campus. Oregon recently hosted him. Same with Georgia. Maryland's going to get an official visit. So an interesting mix of schools there. But you feel like Auburn's secondary coaches there, and Crime Dog and Charles Kelly, are two of your stronger recruiters, and maybe they can make a big push this weekend.
Yeah, Baltimore, Maryland, St. Francis Academy. So there've been some good players that come out of there over the years. He's a top 75 on the composite. Really athletic, dynamic. You think about it, if you're committed to Ohio State and your recruiting list is Auburn, Georgia, Oregon, Alabama, Clemson. I mean, like, you got close to 40 offers. Then there's obviously some playmaking ability to be had when you look at a guy like that. So again, these are the types of players where a guy like Crime Dog can have a real impact in a short time. Because this guy that's searching for something. When you've made it a commitment and now you backed off, you're searching for something. We have seen guys find it in a hurry. I want to make a visit all.
Speaking of made a commitment and backed off, Kalen Edwards, Auburn's former defensive line commit, back this weekend for the first time since decommitting earlier this year, not that long after Jeremy Garrett departed for the Jacksonville Jaguars. But we said that Vontrell Kane-Williams liked this guy and still was recruiting him, and that Auburn was still interested in Kalen Edwards, and clearly that's mutual because he's back this weekend. Jason, it's interesting. You rarely see guys end up back in a class after they decommit. This one feels a little bit different, though. Honestly, both of the defensive linemen that you lost, Antonio Coleman and Kalen Edwards, feel more realistic than others in terms of, I don't feel Auburn's still recruiting Hollis Davidson. I don't feel great that they get him back in the class. Auburn's still recruiting Kalen Edwards and Antonio Coleman. I don't feel great, but I think they could get both of them back in the class. I think that's realistic.
Yeah, and especially, Kalen Edwards from Dyersburg, Tennessee is not a big, huge town. And when you talk to him, you think, he seems like a small town guy. Hey, I want to, kind of. He's another guy that's not real loud, not outgoing. At least not when we've been around him. And so I think you look at him, and this is a massive, big body guy. And you think about this defensive line group, get some of these other guys that are committed, hanging out with him, gets that feeling back again. You're right. It doesn't normally happen, but it does happen. And, the question for Auburn will be, okay, what does the rest of that room look like? Where does he fit? Where does he fit now? Maybe as opposed to where he fit 2 months ago. That could have changed too. So a lot of questions, I'm sure, on both sides from that visit this weekend.
We will take one question here from the chat and then go ahead and wrap things up. I don't even know how to pronounce that name.
Hoggery?
Yeah, we'll go with that. He said, do you think Alvin Henderson shows up again this weekend? He showed up for an unofficial visit 2 weekends ago. Kind of funny enough, I don't necessarily think it was a huge coincidence that Usman Kroma was in on an official visit at the same time, another big Auburn running back target. I don't think it was a huge coincidence that Alvin showed back up again. We don't expect him in this weekend, but he is one of those guys that has been in a million times, and half of the time it hasn't been expected, and he just shows up. And that's clearly continued to be the case even since he committed to Penn State, because he showed up a couple weeks ago. So it's certainly possible that he shows up. Don't expect it, but if he does, we'll have it covered for you at auburnundercover.com. We'll have all the official visits covered at auburnundercover.com. We will have live updates during the elite camp running on Sunday as well. We will have coverage leading into the elite camp in terms of a preview, coverage leading into the official visits, preview, stuff like that. Like I mentioned earlier, we've had a ton of golf coverage. That is going to continue. There's plenty more still to go there. Appreciate everyone that tuned in live. Our boy Jake Weiss, the former Auburn beat writer, in the chat.
Up, Jake.
Appreciate you, Jake, hopping in. Appreciate everyone else as well. Pocket Watch is here. Michael, Dan, Kevin, Joseph, Drexel, Stan. There's a bunch more as well, but appreciate everyone that hopped in, especially for a late night, 10 p.m. Central, past 11 Eastern time. So really appreciate everyone hopping in, talking some Auburn golf with us. Congrats again to Coach Nick Kleinert and the Auburn men's golf team for clinching the first national championship in program history. Stay tuned to auburnundercover.com for more coverage of that. And we will catch you guys again soon for another podcast. I think there's another podcast. Nathan has a basketball podcast coming on Friday with Isaac Trotter from the 24/7 Sports National team. And then we'll have more recruiting stuff to talk about at the end or at the beginning of next week as well. So stay tuned for all that. Appreciate everyone for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys soon.